again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. Today, I'm here with my friend Ashley and Katie. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. You guys came all the way from Albuquerque, right?
Yes.
I'm from Albuquerque.
I came from Belen.
Belen, okay, so up north.
So she grabbed me on the way down.
Oh, that's an easy trip, though.
Yes.
You got her on the way down. That's always nice, on the way.
Right.
So thank you again for joining me. This is another good episode. As you guys know, the legislative session is in full swing. A bunch of stuff going on. I'm going to update y'all on that. Of course, we got a federal legalization stuff update, too. I know we haven't talked about that in a while, but we do have some updates. But first, I want to talk about you ladies, and let's get to know you a little bit. So thank you again for joining me. And if you could you guys introduce yourselves to everybody watching?
Yes, my name's Katie, owner of Sweet Leaf Creations, co-owner of Gazette.
And I'm Ashley. I'm the owner of Belladonna Photography and Events and also co-owner of the Gazette. It's a project that we just started together. So.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that you guys are bringing all that to here so we can talk about it. I know I got to talk to you guys, for a little bit yesterday and everything, so that was nice. And y'all are checking out the South and what we have to offer, so I'm excited to see how it's gone and everything. So, like you said, are you from Albuquerque originally?
Yes.
Yeah, born and raised, huh?
Yes, well, Albuquerque and the East Mountains, Moriarty, Cedillo Hill, Edgewood, that area.
Awesome. Yeah, so
back
north.
and forth.
Yeah. Are you Belen?
I've been back and forth between Belen and Los Lunas, which is pretty small, so like all of Valencia County.
Yeah, so all New Mexicans. That's cool. Yeah. I'm from here myself. Everyone watching already knows. I ain't gotta say it.
New Mexico, true.
Yeah. Gino too. Yeah, Gino's from up north as well. Northwest.
Nice. Hey.
One of the first times he's actually talked on the show. So that's great. And you guys mentioned the Grassy Gazette, right? That's like your new publication that you're coming out with?
Yes, Gazette magazine, journalism, publication, artwork, legislation, anything you can think of, model management, events.
Yeah, nice. And on the events part, do you guys plan on doing your own, or what's really?
We've been doing our own for the last 6 months. We've had 6 events over the last 6 months, all in consumption lounges that are in Albuquerque. So that's why we came out here to check out the 2 lounges that you have here and start working on planning some events, which we've had some great meetings and we've got some really cool stuff in the works that we're excited about.
That. Yeah.
So just trying to get people into the lounges.
I love that. I love that the fact that you guys are using, you ladies, are using, what you have at hand is the lounges. That gives us the opportunity to get in a social environment and also consume at the same time. Because a lot of times we have to go to someone's house or private property or something like that. But the consumption lounges give us that opportunity. And they're all different everywhere you go. Of course, like the law doesn't really make you do it one way. They're kind of letting you figure out, which is cool. So you end up with a bunch of different models, but some work and some don't. So what's your guys' favorite model so far that you've run into when it comes to consumption lounge?
I think that I really prefer the settings that are more more hospitality, more customer service. You sit down and they come to your table, bring you a menu, talk to you, things like that. I think that's really the direction that hopefully that most of them will be headed, because now a lot of them are still set up like retail.
Yeah.
You can buy your stuff and then you can come in here and use the lounge, but we feel more comfortable in a space where the staff is interacting with you, that they're bringing you ice water, things like that. So.
Nice.
And the places that serve food and drinks, it definitely makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it does. And I tell people this all the time, that consumption lounges, they're not retail, they're hospitality.
Exactly.
Just like bars, just like restaurants, those are the hospitality industry. You're using components of the retail, of course, but it is hospitality. It's a total different world. You're not there to get the customer in and out. You're there to cater to the customer, and they're going to be there to spend more money.
Yeah.
This isn't the fast transactions that people are used to. This is a longevity kind of thing, and those customers are going to keep coming back. I go to the consumption lounge several times a week here in Cruces.
Yeah.
It's, I don't say a habit, but people keep wanting to go, meetings and stuff like that, and it's a great meeting place.
It's perfect for business meetings, especially everything in the cannabis industry and even things outside of the cannabis industry, and I really like here, one of the lounges that we visited has a space that's non-smoking.
Mm-hmm.
People with COPD or people if you just don't want to be around the smoke, and that was a really cool thing because gave an opportunity to have everybody in the building in the same spot. So there's some things like that have been really neat.
Excellent option.
Yeah. And what about you? I'll ask you the same question. What's your favorite style of consumption lounge so far?
So far, I've really enjoyed knowledge and variety. So the bartenders or service holders that have great knowledge about the products that they're serving us, and also, like we were saying, care of each client and each patient coming through, whether recreational or medicinal.
Yeah.
And then the variety of product and knowing what those consist of and how they can affect each person and
Yeah.
what to do about those things in those situations. And
Awesome.
having safety protocols in retention to that really sticks out.
Yeah, 100%. You know, because you could tell, you know, when a place does it right, when a place is kind of like trying to figure it out, or you know, they have a different idea or a different approach. You know, and it does make a difference. You know, and sometimes I tell people, I'm like, well, look what they're doing. You know, maybe take an idea from that. You know, like, or you know, take a look at, step back and look at it from another point of view, maybe. You know, because like I said before, you know, this isn't retail, so some people have not figured that out yet.
Yeah, it's an
you know?
ever-growing industry, and
Yeah.
you have to adapt with it.
Yeah, 100%. You know, because this is a very competitive market in New Mexico. You know, and it's a very unique market. So you know, I hope it stays that way, and I hope to see more of you like those events you guys are doing at the consumption lounges. And I don't want to talk exclusively about the consumption lounges. I think it's cool that you both are really seeing that. Okay, we have these consumption lounges. We can do events. And so let's use this. And so now you guys can go around, and I really want to see somebody start doing like, I want to say like consumption lounge reviews, but like a Anthony Bourdain style kind of thing with the cannabis industry. You know, checking out the different cuisines that would be coming up, and this will
Yeah,
be
it's funny.
years
We
later.
were actually just
Yeah.
talking about doing that, going live, and you know, really expressing, because that's what we want to focus on: backgrounds as well as the services and things that lounges are providing. Since we're just in the beginning stages, all the lounges are, and we're in the beginning stages of our publication. We want to focus on all those things going forward, what they're offering, how they're offering them.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Definitely, and like that's the reason why I do this show too, because you see the retails or you see the businesses, but you don't see the people behind it. You know, you don't see the individual stories of where it came from. You know, like why did you get in the cannabis industry? Why do you use cannabis in the first place? We all have our reasons.
Yes.
You know, like whether it's I just like having fun, or if it's, you know, I have PTSD. You know, or you know, unfortunately they have cancer or something.
Yes.
You know, there's always a reason.
Is it therapeutic?
Yes.
Is it, you know, miscellaneous? Who knows? Is it social? Is it?
Yeah, so it's always great just to get that personal feeling, and then you know just get to know them a little bit. I think that needs to happen with the consumption lounges, because not many states have done this. You know, especially the way that we've done it too. You know, they're either more strict, or you know they're kind of trying to figure it out, or it's, you know, very wonky. But I feel that we have a good model. We're allowing the businesses to kind of figure it out. You know, there's no one way to do this. You know, there's several different ways. And, you know, someone might find a way that we're not even thinking of yet, you know, and, you know.
Absolutely. Everybody is, you know, has their own approach. Ingenuity comes into play,
Yes.
as well as inspiration. You don't get inspiration without seeing someone else's work or something in that realm, and then you associate it with the way you look at it, you would produce it, come out with different results.
Yeah, 100%. Well, appreciate you sharing with that. I really wanted to pick your brains on the consumption lounge thing, because I've been to a few in the state, but I haven't probably been to as many as both of you have been to.
I think we've been to a total of 7 now.
7?
Yes.
5 in Albuquerque and 2 here, and like our plan next is to head out to Arito. So
Oh,
and then I think someone said yesterday there's one in Silver City.
Yes, there's one in Silver City, Buffalo Buzz. If you guys need the contact for that, I can hook you up with it.
Yeah, definitely.
He does food as well, infused and non-infused, and then they do mocktails as too. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
So I go there and get a margarita.
That's a big part of my company and
Yeah.
and what I've been doing and stuff. Even before like touching on the cannabis stuff, I was really like as an event company trying to bring an alcohol-free option to people for weddings, for parties, for things like that. So I started the mocktails probably about 2 years ago, working on recipes, and I started releasing them like over the last year. And that's like a big part of our events that we bring is the mocktails.
So good.
And then it's really neat, like bringing them to the consumption lounges, because a lot of places have their own mixers, their own edibles, things like that. So I'm able to set up a mocktail bar and have option for infused if you want, if you don't, you know what I mean? Just, it's been really fun. And, you know, making it look fancy and just keeping it bougie and just bringing that like higher level of class to everything.
Yeah, because, you know, I used to be a bartender. So, you know, a lot of the aspects that you have with the bar, you can use with cannabis. You just take away the alcohol.
Exactly.
You know, because the mixers have no alcohol in them.
Yeah,
you know, it's just juice or whatever, you know, it may be, or a stronger juice or whatever. And then you add everything else with it. And then, you know, with I wouldn't say the rise, but with more people getting away from things like BHO or distillate and going more towards like something more natural, like rosin, hash rosins, we're going to see more flavors being matched and paired with these things, which I think is great, and it should be a good option for people. And of course, with the nano-emulsification, you know, technology getting better and better every year, we can start seeing these drinks. I wouldn't say mimic alcohol in the sense; it would just mimic the time that it takes to take effect as alcohol. Because usually it takes like 30 minutes, 40 minutes,
sometimes 2 hours.
2 hours,
People,
yeah, then it's kind of creeping, and that can get dangerous. So if you have it affect you a little bit quicker, you kind of can gauge yourself a little bit more. Like, okay, I am a little too stoned right now. I need to take a little bit, drink some water, get some food, maybe, kind of hang out for a while.
That's why I like the mocktails as well, though, even when they're not infused, because you can smoke, you can have infused drinks, you can have edibles, things like that. But the mocktails are kind of a good balancer because you can get the same type of feel, the vibe, without it being dangerous to your body because you have that extra vitamin, minerals, things like that, like the adrenal cocktails. At our workshops, I get the same buzz that I would get smoking and drinking the mocktails as I would off of a drink at a bar.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about hurting myself or others driving home.
Yeah.
And it's just the vibes and having fun and just co-oping with all the people in the right atmosphere, and it's so much safer.
Yeah.
I did drink and paint events for the longest time, for a good 4 or 5 years, and then once the consumption lounges and legalization came into play, I was just like, okay, now it's time to shift. Everybody go green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of like our whole mission right now is getting people out of the bars, into the lounges, into a safer space, and making everybody comfortable and everybody safe. And since it's so new and all these lounges are so new, I think it's a really important time for everybody to network together. Mm-hmm. Like you said, share ideas, see what works. See, the best way to figure it out is to work together, especially when something's so new like this.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%, and just the better together kind of situation. Like, I get it, some people, they can't work together. That's fine, that happens. Like, you don't force yourself to work with somebody you can't work with or you don't want to work with. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, let's try to work together as much as we can. If you could put your differences aside, sure, by all means. But, if it's something that bad, but don't worry about it. Like, there's other people you can work with in the industry.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah. Move on from there, yeah.
Go your own
like, as long as everyone's just keeping an open mind, and listening to each other's ideas and just sharing information. That network is important right now.
Yeah, it is. And the networking, and especially in our industry in New Mexico, is so important. It's such a small state, and the cannabis community itself is a lot smaller. It's a very tight niche, community, and most people know each other in it.
And the thing is that there's no reason. This is a fun job.
Yeah.
But it's a job.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, the industry is a job, and there's no reason to be childish, disrespectful, or unprofessional.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Of course, trolls will try to do whatever, all that. And so, yeah.
You gotta just
get rid of them. Sometimes it's like, should I respond to them? Like, some people try to act like they're smart, and then they're like, oh, it's a troll. Just get out of here.
You have to. Otherwise, you'll go down a rabbit hole, and then you just make your own self angry with.
Yeah, you're just like, you make no sense. It's like, well, why would I even get
What good does this do?
Yeah, so, but I guess we'll move on and start talking about, more of like your business too, because, I know the consumption lounges, it goes on side with it, but I want to know more about, the magazine. Is it a printed or is it going to be digital?
Both.
Okay.
So we're going to platform with MagCloud, which is available digitally.
Okay.
But it is also available for print. What we're going to do is work with our sponsors as well as our ad buyers, as well as published models. For anybody who wants printed, they can purchase that, as well as have printed copies in their retail locations to sell at their own will.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's going to be more, because I see most magazines, they just give them out for free. And I think that was the notion that, magazines are dying. But, I've heard other people tell me, well, they're kind of having a revival now I remember growing up with Hastings. I'm sure you guys remember Hastings.
Oh, yeah.
And so you remember the magazine, the abundance of magazines, of course, guys. Yes, you remember the Nudie mags. Someone's going to bring it up. I knew it. But, they had like Game Pro, Game Informer. They had, of course, High Times and other cannabis grow books that I would try to sneak and look at because, you don't want to get in trouble of not being old enough to look at them. But, we could start seeing that possibly again. People actually paying for that kind of media and that content. You have, most news medias, offering you some kind of subscription. Like, I don't know how many paywalls I run into when trying to read an article these days, but, at least having the physical magazine in your hand is a little bit better. We're finding that streaming isn't always better than physical media because streaming can remove whatever it wants and adds whatever, and then you don't have that movie anymore. Even when you buy it, people are running into issues like, well, I bought this, but it's not mine. Like, what's going on here? So at least if you have the physical media,
it's yours.
It's
forever.
yours. You can whatever you want. You can do whatever we want with it. That's why I was like, what? Maybe I shouldn't get rid of my DVDs.
That's hard.
Yeah,
that's hard to do because it's so nostalgic, and that's kind of what we want to bring back is that journalism, something to physically read. sit back in the lounge, actually have an article, some literature, not just snap. You can swipe through photos on your phone all day. You can also read through articles, don't get me wrong, but to actually have that sit back, enjoy your smoke, dab, whatever edibles, and look at something that has substance to it is really what we want to bring back.
Exactly.
High times, like you said, Rolling Stone kind of vibe meets New York Times columns.
Yeah, I like that. It's a mix of like I like how you put the Rolling Stones, because Rolling Stones, they cover a wide range of different topics
Exactly.
and
And like,
stories
we want to touch
and
on a lot of
things.
different
And
Yeah.
like you
things.
said, the background of not only the businesses, the industry, and the individuals themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Because there's more to the industry. Like with y'all, you're more than just Grass Gazette. It's two individuals who got together with this great idea, and you had your own stories to start with it too. So let's get into that. What really got you into the cannabis industry to start with? And I'll start with you.
Well, I was one of the many survivors of past traumas, things like that, and I had horrible adverse reactions to medication, pharmaceuticals, things like that, and I stripped all of that from my life, and I got really bad traumatic depressive things like that. It was really bad for me, and I had a family member introduce me to cannabis, and I was so scared from the past drug trauma things that I went through that when I tried cannabis I was legitimately scared.
Yeah.
And I didn't want anything to do with it. When I tried it, different neurons fired in my brain, and I learned the science of it and how it made me feel in comparison to the pharmaceuticals, and it changed my life.
Yeah.
And I really promote that going forward, and the way that it made me feel and the way that it changed my art really wanted it inspired me to move forward that with that and help other people.
Yeah.
I've bud tended, I've done therapy, I have worked, smoked, drank, you name it, but medical cannabis is really the biggest thing that has really influenced such a big movement in my life and to help others understand it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I like to ask people that because we don't know why everybody gets into it. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's passion, sometimes it's a story like yours. So I appreciate you, with the fight and everything, and continuing on and really advocating for it now. It's like, look how it helped me. It could probably help you too. And cannabis isn't for everybody. And
Exactly.
we'll get onto that a little bit later with one of my other topics, but it's not for everyone. Just like anything.
Absolutely.
Like pizza's not for everybody. Like
chocolate.
yeah, chocolate's not for everybody.
Everything.
Yeah, like everything and everything. I mean, like even when you get down to pizza, like I like pineapple on my pizza. Some of you are gonna crucify me for that, but I like pineapple on my pizza. And some people hate that and can't do that. So, but yeah, I mean, what about you then? What got you into it?
For me, cannabis has been a big part of my life for a while, just from like she said, like the health aspect, and I'm an herbalist. I'm always looking for herbal remedies, holistic remedies, things like that. And that was like a big thing with my mocktail. So like
Yeah.
I didn't just take the alcohol out of the drinks, I take it a step further and I try to make each one of my mocktails have some sort of health benefit.
Yeah.
Like my most popular one is the Good Mood Juice. It's an adrenal mocktail, so like it supports your adrenal system, helps reduce cortisol. It helps with a ton of things.
Yeah.
So I really try to and just touch on a way to help people find a healthier way of life.
Yeah.
And I also have a background in safety, risk management, and the fire department and stuff like that. So growing up in the fire department, pulling people out of car accidents, things like that, like it really makes you look at alcohol different. So
Yeah.
like if I'm really like on a mission to get people away from the alcohol and move towards a healthier way of life and a healthy way to socialize and have fun.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think that like they have to just stay at home when they stop drinking and like stop living life, and like we're bringing any and every kind of event we could think of, even stuff we've never done before, because if somebody might like it and it gets them off the couch and into a social environment, like you said, helps with depression, things like that. We want everybody to feel safe. We want everybody to feel comfortable and really want to just create that environment for everyone.
Oh, I'm glad, and thank you for that because that's one thing that I try to focus on too is the veterans because they like pour alcohol down our throat, and even when you're in the military, so I have a lot of feelings when it comes to that. So yeah, that's one thing that really helps me too is I can get my vets off the alcohol,
Exactly.
off the pills because like some of them like I have to drink a fifth a night. They tell me to go to bed. Not me, but some of my friends, and that breaks my heart. Because that's not healthy, and they will die.
Poisoning their
Yeah,
bodies.
literally, like they will die, and so like I don't want them to go through that. I want my battles with me for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Like I don't want us to leave early. So and with anyone else either too. Like alcoholism is not just an issue in New Mexico. It's been an issue for a long time, but it's a national, global issue. Like I've gone to other countries, of course, my time in the military and contracting through the government, and alcoholism's everywhere. There's alcoholics in every country, for the most part. Some countries ban it, but even then, even if it's illegal, you'll still get the people that make the risk.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
even in Iraq, some of the
They'll find
guys.
a way to get it there.
Yeah, they will. Even in Iraq, alcohol was illegal, but they figured out a way to get it in, and it's against their religion. But one guy, what did he use? He said the Quran says you can't drink the first drop to your lips or something like that. So what he would do is he'd take the bottle, put his finger in it, one drop, and then drink it because the first drop kind of thing. So he found a way around it. But yeah, a little loophole. But I'm just like, dude, you really had to think about that one to do it. So I'm just glad that we have the alternative, and I'm glad that you saw what was and what it could be. Like I see this alcohol issue, but we don't have to keep it. Like I want a chelada. I want something like that, but not with alcohol in it.
I actually
because
have a really awesome gelato recipe. I'll have to send you the videos
yes,
of it and the
please.
pictures and stuff. Like, yeah,
love
I've made them
those.
like with the whole shrimp on everything,
Yeah.
the vegetables. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
they
it's
use
yummy, right?
a kombucha,
Yeah.
like a ginger lime
Oh, that
kombucha
sounds
instead of a
good.
beer. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, and like it gives us the opportunity to add more medicinal benefits to the cannabis as well. And I'm starting to see that with certain drinks too. I had this one the other day that someone brought from New York, and it had a lot of really great ingredients in it. And I was really impressed because I was like, this is good. And one of them was kind of spicy. I mean, New Mexican, I love spicy. Might not everybody not like that, but the spicy is good for some people. And so I really enjoyed that. And it's gonna really give us just differences. And today I made a post because I noticed all the drinks that are being made, like in the cans and everything, are too sweet. For when it
They're
comes to
almost a
cannabis.
syrup. Most of them.
Yeah.
They're very thick.
Yeah, it is. It's like, oh, and I even put on the post at the end, a little bit of a joke, but it's being for real. Like, you guys can put an elephant in a coma. Like, like this is bad. Like in a diabetic coma, wow. So like, I was asking them, please, can we go a different route? You don't have to make it just sweet. There's other flavors we can do and use, and
there's so many flavors, herbs, fruits, vegetables that have so many benefits that also just bring that dynamic. The presentation, it makes it look better, it makes it taste better. And you're getting those added health benefits, which at the end of the day, this is medicine, and we want to put whatever other medicine we can with it.
Yeah. And I think it'd be cool, I guess you could call this a suggestion, is if you had maybe a monthly drink recipe, in your magazine. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that's actually a really awesome idea.
Yeah, that is a great
Mocktail
idea
of the
because
month.
we do change up every spread and every drink according to the theme of the event.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to make more of an experience than a class or an instructed thing. It's more of a get together, a party, a sesh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and no, I think that'd be cool, and it gives other people to start that conversation too. It kind of breaks that barrier and makes it more normal. And maybe, something like this can spark that and start
That's
it,
like kind of the whole idea, because right now people seem like really scared of the lounges and the whole idea, and it's very new and so.
And so far, our experiences with our events, people will come in and they're a little unsure and they tell us, I had nothing to expect from this. I had no idea what I was walking into.
Well, let's talk about the events. What goes on at the events that you guys host?
Different crafts. We do different arts and crafts. Just the mocktails, the snacks and spreads, body art. We've done charcuterie workshop, floral workshop, puff and paint. That is the most popular that people are familiar with, is the puff and paints. But we also do planters, fairy light bottles, stash jars, you name it, all kinds of different stuff. And we put it together with these mocktails and whatnot. So everybody has a little bit of the whole realm, something to eat, drink, sit at their leisure. They come in and everybody kind of just sits and picks where they want to go. And by the end of the night, everybody comes together and starts interacting and mingling and figuring out what they're doing. And we all work on the same crafting project, but everybody does it so differently and everybody appreciates how different they are, and everything looks so great and tastes great, and everybody has a great time and learns a lot about each other. I've seen people exchange information at the end of these things.
Yeah.
It's been
That's what it,
a
and bringing
great
just people from
time.
like all different walks of life together
Yes.
into one environment has been very cool.
That's great. I love that. That's what we need in the cannabis world too, because of every walk of life uses cannabis in some way. I'm not going to say everybody, but every walk of life, every
Yes.
category of person. Growing up, the cowboys smoked weed. The basketball players smoked weed.
100%,
The nerdy kids smoked weed. Everyone was smoking weed. It's just we had to be quiet about it. We're kids too, to be honest. Kids shouldn't be smoking weed. But it happened, and that was the thing. Like someone that
different
smokes
generation.
weed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a whole different generation.
Yeah.
We came from the dare generation where we drove the bad and pay.
Yes, but
The
we
girls
had no way
deflated
to
on the
get
couch.
nobody had a way to get a hold of each other.
Yeah.
Our parents were just like, go out into the wild. There was no way to call us, anything like that. Come back and
Hopefully you come back when
hopefully,
it's dark.
hopefully everything goes accordingly. As to where now we have electronic leashes and we can keep better track of, our children and things like that and plan accordingly. As to where back then it was different.
Yeah.
Experimented whenever we got the chance because who was going to stop us?
Yeah. We're told to be out there alone. It's like, okay, well, what is this?
Yes, but
Yeah,
now
yeah.
we have the knowledge where we can see where these things are coming from, what's in them, and we don't have to worry about what's going into our bodies.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing benefit.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And I hope that, your events, really take off and this mocktail stuff really gets going, because I love that. That's a great idea. You're bringing the whole destigmatization thing to you. It's like we're bringing these events to you.
Yeah.
And it's going to be at a consumption lounge. You don't have to worry about it being at some place with this rules or whatever, and it's a secret location kind of thing. It's out in the open for the public.
Yes, and we've done family friendly events where they do have certain areas where it's like a beer garden. You go and you smoke in that area, and we have family for destigmatization. I can't even talk. But our children, they know the difference between what is good, what's bad, that this is our medicine. And they differentiate that, and we keep them away. Like I face paint. I've been face painting kids. It's my first job out of high school, and I never gave it up.
Yeah.
And that's what got me into the event industry.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad that, you have the experience coming in and, you're basing this whole stuff around, like not just the magazine, but you got the events and all that too with it. So thank you for that. Thank you ladies for doing this. But before we move on, what really brought you guys together to start this project in the first place?
Art.
Art.
We both love art, photography. I was working a 420 event, painting models, doing body art on adult models.
Yeah.
And taking pictures and stuff, promoting the event for my own little street team that I worked with, another magazine that was based out of Denver. And from there, she volunteered to model. We met up, hit it off, and from there, we just kind of went down our own road and wanted to look at doing something different and more substantial.
Yeah, we ended up meeting up again this recent past
Became
420
good
at
friends
the Duke
and-
City 420 Fest at the Civic Plaza in Albuquerque. I modeled body paint again. Modeled again
Yeah,
for her
that's
there,
good.
and then like after that, I saw her starting to do like the puffin paints, and I really wanted to incorporate the mocktails and like the charcuterie buffet, and like really just bring that like fancy like Martha Stewart type like aspect to
Yeah.
these events. So like we're not always just at like a lowrider car show type vibe, you
Yeah.
know, like just a little more, professionalism, a little more class, and just something a little fancier, because that is a huge part of New Mexico culture, but there's so many other parts of New Mexico culture too, and we
Yeah.
want everybody to feel comfortable and included in the whole same environment there. So
Yeah. Because I mean, the cannabis culture itself was just the people who weren't afraid.
exactly,
Like the more vocal people, the ones who were like, "This is bullshit," blah blah blah. There's nothing wrong with that, but there was another class of people who didn't have that benefit. They either worked with their job, they couldn't lose their job, or couldn't risk losing their job, so no one could know. Or
Yes.
this and that. So we have these pockets of people that are different. It's just the most common ones were just the ones who didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't care about your laws. That's fair. But there needs to be a space for everyone. So
Everyone, yeah,
I like the fact that you ladies did that. So Thank you again, and thank you for sharing these stories with me. I look forward to continuing this conversation on our next topics and everything. So, is there anything else y'all want to add before we move on?
I did want to say one thing because I know like we have the 5 lounges in Albuquerque. We've got 2 here. We talked about Ruidoso, Silver City, but Valencia County doesn't have any lounges now, but we are gonna have one soon.
Ooh,
Because
okay.
with the budding bar and dispensary, they're working on getting their stuff. So I know by the end of the year they should be up and running. So
Cool.
Valencia County, we have one coming too. So
Nice. That's good to hear. And I always love hearing when a new consumption lounge pops
yes,
up. Alamogordo just got one recently. That's my hometown.
Nice.
And so I want to go check that out sometime soon and,
Yeah.
see how that is. And, it'd be cool to go to consumption lounge in my hometown, because it's very conservative over there. So it's nice to see it.
Yeah, something different. It's like, okay, how are they gonna handle this?
Yeah. It's like, okay, how is everyone going to do this? So we'll see. But anyway, thank you again so much for being here today. Let's continue the conversation on. So now we have the weekly legislative update. So I'm going to update you guys on a couple of bills today. Not that many because not too many cannabis bills were actually seen in its first committee. The first one I'm going to talk about is SB 89. It was a remove incremental tax bill. What this was supposed to do, or what could do, because there's still some hopes for it, is our taxes are due to increase by 1% this year and they continue to increase till 2030. And I believe after it's all said and done, it'll be close to 26% of total tax at the end of the day. And I think it goes up to 18% tax. Right now, we're currently at 12, so it'd go to 13. One thing that is being acknowledged in the legislature is the fact that if we do continue to increase our taxes, then we will see a traditional market revival that we've never seen before when it comes to the legal sense. Because if the taxes go too high, then people are discouraged to buy from the legal market. They'll go back to the traditional market.
exactly.
And we saw that in other states that are too high. Washington, for one. I mean, their taxes are very high. They could probably be doing better if they lower the taxes and allow people to purchase it cheaper. But that's also a state that has a lot more money than New Mexico, especially the residents. So maybe those residents don't care. But the black market or traditional market does tend to thrive in places that have crazy tax, like California. Like the taxes in California are ridiculous. Like they tax ridiculous things. The rate is high, and you're getting taxed for just raising your hand to stretch. Kind of situation. And it's like, wow, okay, like how am I going to make it here? And to be honest, I don't know how they make it in California because that is a ridiculous place. Now, they are different. Only 30% of cities in California are, allow cannabis sales. So I think that kind of helps because you can only have to go to you have to go to certain places to get your cannabis. But we're trying to prevent stuff like that here in New Mexico. We don't need to increase it because I heard some legislators talk about, well, what's the tax in Arizona? And I'm like, why should we care what the tax is in Arizona? This is New Mexico. They have more money than us. They're a lot more wealthy than us. So like the common New Mexican resident has a hard time paying the 20% tax. And so they acknowledge for the most part that this does need to happen, but there were some issues that came about during the committee, and they were legitimate issues, and one of them has to deal with the budget. Now, the budget for 2026 is pretty much already being done right now because the government works in fiscal years. They don't work in years. So they're working on pretty much the 26 budget right now, and they pretty much took into consideration that we were going to get, more taxes, the 1% extra tax due to the cannabis increase. And so they're saying that would be about $4 to $8 million short. Now, I was told 4 million in the committee and someone told me I was 8, but I heard 4.1 million and that's all I heard in the committee. So it looks like 4.1 million that's what it was. It would be 4.1 million for this year and next year. So I think combined, I think it would be 8, but for next year, it'd definitely be 4.1 million that they're short. They'll have to figure out where that deficit will come from. And so I think that was the issue for it. What they did is they're going to delay this or, to me, it's what the term she used is held. We're going to hold this bill. And yesterday I made a post where I said that they tabled it, which it's kind of along the same definition of what tabling is, but I don't think it's the same because what they want to do is they want to include this into like a tax bill, and I think it's going to be like the tax bill because that's what they said in it, and it's a tax package is actually the terminology that they used, and so they want to put it into a tax package so that way it's included. And so they want to go back and try to figure out, okay, if we don't get this 1%, where is the money going to come from? And that does make sense. I get it. That was a reasonable concern. But at the same time, we don't need our taxes to be going up. And I think they just need to understand that. And I hopefully they do. I hope to see this again. But as of right now, this bill isn't going to go through our legislature anymore until it either gets reintroduced with some clarification or maybe putting a wait or halt on it when they figure out where the money is going to come from, or it gets put into that tax package, like they said in the committee. So we'll see what happens. I'm not too sure. We do need this as the industry. As I said, if it does continue to increase, even the 1% is kind of damning for us. If it continues to increase, well, like the scheduling is supposed to, our industry is going to struggle more than what it is right now. So what do you ladies think about that kind of situation?
I think, it's kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place. We need to find those funds. We need to make sure that everything's covered, that everything's being regulated, that we have all the resources that we need. But like I said, especially like the small growers, small businesses, that 1% can be a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it can be, make or break a lot of businesses.
Yeah, because they have to pay these taxes. They have to pay 280E. It's not like we can claim taxes or anything. This is money going out, never coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's just money gone. So I mean, what do you think about it?
I agree that, we don't necessarily need it. I think, well, I've always thought that, people are paying tax money. It should go back to the people, especially just as an example, being in the lounges and the dispensaries. You go in there and I hear patients, complaining about the taxes and fees, especially recreational and whatnot. They're high, especially for the smaller businesses
Yeah.
and for the patients. And even though they have a valid point on putting a hold on these funds, they should still look at, where people are at, because living wages, working wages, all of that compiled into one on top of us getting our medicine, because that's what it is. It should be looked at as us getting our medicine. It should go back to us and taking care of those fees.
Yeah, and that's one thing that they talked about. Where's this? Because we do have a patient general fund in the law that I'm not too sure what's going on with it, because it's supposed to be a fund, and this is something that we pushed during the medical days because there was a lot of patients that couldn't afford cannabis, and we heard it all the time. Got approached it, and there was times where I dished my own money to help patients out who needed the help. So there was supposed to be a fund that was supposed to help those patients themselves, and we haven't really seen much of it kind of materializing or any of it. So maybe it's time to kind of remind them, like, hey, there was some stuff in the bill that was supposed to happen, but
You were
it's not
supposed to take
happening.
care of people.
Yeah.
Too,
So
yeah.
like,
Absolutely, but it
what?
takes a lot of us to push and
Yeah.
remind them of that. Otherwise, they won't wink, and that's a big goal too, for people to work together to push these things.
Yeah.
The more people we have to sign on these things.
Yeah.
And again, like why the lounges are, such an asset, because it gives us a place to all convene, work together, network, come together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not really all the businesses against each other right now. It's the businesses against, figuring out the legislation, figuring out the, against government regulation.
Yeah.
So,
Well, then you have the corporate companies too, trying to do their thing
exactly.
as well too. You have
So,
the
more
mom and pops trying to survive.
Yeah,
in
and the
between.
more those little mom and pops band together, I think like it just makes a stronger force and makes it a lot more likely for more people to survive as a small business.
I think so too. 100%. So, but that was SB 89. We'll see what happens with that. It could be reintroduced, like I said, with that tax package, like they said in the committee, or it could be standalone again, is something else they mentioned too. It could be an option. So we'll see. I'm 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 kind of sad that it didn't go ahead, but I do get the concern, that $4 million. I mean, where's it going to come from? So hopefully they figure it out, and hopefully it's not just trying to fool us so they can just keep increasing taxes. But some of them do understand that we get more money when we don't allow the traditional market to take back over, because you get no money when the traditional market is the one making all the money.
Exactly.
And about a good percentage of our industry now is traditional market. There's still a very big presence, and you'll never kill a traditional market or black market. You can only shrink it to the point where you don't really recognize it or realize it's there.
Or where it's not a threat to,
Yeah, because there's a black market for alcohol and tobacco still, for untaxed, unregulated, untaxed. What people will do is they'll, go to Mexico, buy it, not pay the tax, essentially smuggle it back and then sell it. And it's tax free, and they're making all the money. So that's still there, but it's very rare that you hear about that. It's not something as common as what we see on the cannabis side. And that's what some of the legislators were talking about. Like, well, we don't do this for tobacco and alcohol. But I was like, yeah, but their black markets are so small that you guys don't even realize that they have them. Like, I'm sure if I brought it up to them, they'd probably be like, oh, I didn't know that. Because, they probably don't know that the fact that there are still traditional markets for those legal things. It's just cannabis is so new. we're still trying to get rid of that traditional market. We haven't had the time to eradicate enough to shrink it, that it doesn't make sense for us to do the same thing. Because if we do that, we're hurting ourselves versus, fixing any kind of issue. Those industries have been established for a very long time in our country, federally, and through states. So they already have the infrastructure and they already have the
Yes.
standards and everything. We're still figuring it out.
Yeah,
You know,
they
for
have to
cannabis.
go through that trial and error, which is
Yeah.
exactly what's going on with the cannabis
Yes,
industry now.
we're trial and error right now. We're figuring out. Like I said, no state has done this correctly yet. Even New Mexico. I think we're on the right track. But of course, we still have some tweaks and fixes that we need to do with our own industry here in New Mexico. So I think um, I think the chances of seeing this again are high. But don't quote me on that because I could be wrong, and we could just not see this because we only have a few more weeks left of the session. We're getting close to about 30 days here in a couple weeks of the session, and then you have about another month after that. So it's moving along and it goes fast. And you can't sit on these bills and you can't wait. You have to do it as fast as you can. So hopefully they get this back in. All right. So next I'm going to talk about HB 10. This has been a very controversial bill in the industry, which kind of surprised me when it did become controversial because this is the bill or essentially what the industry wanted. They wanted more enforcement. They wanted them to crack down. But I think the way that it was presented to them made a lot of people afraid. Because I had my own concerns going into it. And when I was in Santa Fe, I actually asked my questions and my concerns to get them answered. And that's what you guys should do too. If you have concerns, join the next committee, whatever you can or call your representative. Maybe set up a meeting so they can answer these questions for you. Because we don't need to go into things like this with little to no understanding of it just because we have had this history with the police, like this negative history with the government and police. Let me make me, correct myself. It's been the government and the police. And I told them that in the committee. I said, there's a lot of concerns. I'm just concerned of the wrong people being attacked or harassed with something like this because we've seen this before. This isn't like something I'm making up. Like we've gone through this before, and I just want to make sure this is not going to happen again. I want to make sure that you guys are actually going after the people who are doing bad things, not the guy who made one small minor mistake and it's fixable, but you want to say it's against the law, and so now you just hem them up.
Yes.
Or someone had a bad day and now everyone suffers for it kind of situation. That's what I didn't want to go to, and they did reiterate this a few times that no, the CCD will just trigger the investigation from starting. So it'd be like the CCD finds it, and then they contact that agency because the agency would be under RLD, and then they'll go from there. And they will be police officers. They'll be peace officers. They'll have 100% what a police officer can do. They can even join in other task stuff. Like a lot of the times when you guys see raids, you'll see, especially here in the southern New Mexico, you'll see Border Patrol. You'll see DEA. You'll see the game warden sometimes there. Yeah, the most random ones. So they'll deputize them all together. So this allows them to do that. I do think we need this bill, but at the same time, if you have concerns, you need to get them answered yourself. You need to ask these questions because my concerns are probably different from your concerns, and I'm sure from yours as well. So if you have the concern, bring it up. I can't think of everybody's concern offhand, and sometimes you guys bring us really good ones. So if you have a concern on this bill, please bring it up because this is a very important bill. If this doesn't pass, then we're stuck with another year trying to figure out how to do this enforcement. Now, I will say there's some stuff happening in the industry that should be, like I said before, there's some laws not being followed enforcement-wise too that need to happen, I feel, before this. But this is the real world, and I feel this is going to happen in tandem with it. So in a real world, I would say, no, you need to use what the law allows you now and to go that route. Like with oversaturation, in the bill, they're supposed to go every year and look at the plant count and change it so that way we don't run into this issue. They've claimed they did it last year, but there's no documentation to show it. So I can't really say that they've done it. They've just told us they've done it. So until I can see a physical documentation that shows me everything that they did and how they did it, I can't say that they did.
Realistically, that's how things work. If it's not documented, it didn't happen.
Exactly. So
it doesn't exist.
Yeah. So as of right now, I can't say that it's happened. I'm just going to say it hasn't happened because I can't tell you what it says or what happened. So those are a lot of the hangups that I've been hearing in the industry. The governor did ask me what the industry feels about this bill, and I was honest with her. I said it's mixed. but I didn't have time to really tell her why I said that or why it's mixed. And it's because people are just afraid of being targeted. And some people are like, well, if you're doing the right thing, you don't have nothing to worry about. I'm like, oh God, this argument again. Like we've proven time and time again, that's
But
not always the
that's
case.
not always the case in
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
situation,
That's
when you
not
start
always the
dealing
case.
with bringing in the police and regulating things like that.
Yeah. There's been times where I'm not doing anything wrong and I still get harassed,
Mhm.
Yes.
like for no reason. And then afterwards you're like, I was dumb. That wasted everybody's time. So that's something that we just don't want to happen again. And so I think the industry understands the enforcement needs to get better. The illegal grows, the illegal operations, they need to end. Um, but we don't need to do it off the backs of the people who are doing the right thing. And there are a lot of legislators who understand that. That's pretty much the update I have for this. It did pass its committee, so it's on to the House floor. If it passes the House floor, then it goes on to the Senate, where it'll do its committee things again, and then it'll go to that floor. If it does pass the Senate, it goes to the governor's desk, and then she decides to sign this or not. I believe she is fully supporting this bill, so she most likely will sign this bill if it does get to her desk. If you are for this, contact your representatives. If you're against this, please contact your representatives. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what to tell them or what you should believe when it comes to this bill, but it's really going to be on you what you really want to see as enforcement in the state. Um, to me, I've asked my questions and they put me more to at ease with this. I feel that the rest of us need to be making our questions to people too. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to the next bill, SB 219. Now this one has nothing to do with cannabis, and this one is groundbreaking, not just for New Mexico but nationally, because we're one of only the few states that are actually doing this. It's SB 219, the Medical Psilocybin Act. And I've told you all about this before. We've been working on this. I've been working with Soul Trip for over a year now. We connected with Senator Steinborn, and he helped sponsor the bill. Then with that, we got a bunch of other co-sponsors. This is a bipartisan bill. This is probably as bipartisan as you'll ever see a bill like this get. Senator Brandt was very vocal against cannabis. He was very vocal, doing stuff with cannabis, but he's very vocal on supporting this. I heard him talk about he was on opioids for 19 years and he's been getting off of them. He got off of them about 3 years ago. And I think in between then and now, he found either mushrooms or he's researching mushrooms. Either way, I can't say that he's tried them, but he took a 180 when it came to this substance in general. He sees the benefits that his friends get at the VA, and he sees other citizens getting benefit from this. And I think the way that this bill is written um, really gains their support because we're doing this carefully. And during one of the town halls, I told everybody, I said, we have to do this differently than we did cannabis. We kind of just said, good luck, open the floodgates and figure it out, but this isn't cannabis. This is a total different substance. This is something that you need to respect. Don't get me wrong, you need to respect cannabis too, but mushrooms, you can see Jesus, Muhammad, Shiva, and Sonic the Hedgehog all at the same time. And so that's something that we really have to take into consideration. That's something that they have taken into consideration in this bill. So what they're doing is they're going low and slow. So it's very limited at the very beginning. And then as we go on, it's going to get more and more because we need to get people educated first. They need to be educated on psilocybin. I can't say the other one. I'll figure that one out. But, magic mushrooms, essentially. We have to get everybody educated on it. So that way they don't either end up in the hospital for whatever reason, because that happens all the time with edibles. People would take too much and they'll freak out. Most of the time with edibles, they don't need to go to the hospital. We don't want to run into that issue in the first place because then I just asked the statistics. Oh, this many people went to the hospital for cannabis. Then we start getting that with the mushrooms, and we don't want to see that. This is supposed to be for medicinal purposes for now, and then later on we'll figure out if we want to expand that. And I'm sure we will eventually, but that's not going to be for a while. And to be honest, I think it's better to do it this way than to open the floodgates, because right now with cannabis, it already has a bad stigma. We see how that's going with people. Some people hate it because of the way it got rolled out. There wasn't enough education. The reefer madness stigma was still there when we went about this. Don't get me wrong, you have to rip that Band-Aid off sometimes. But we didn't do a good enough job educating. So if we do with this bill, I think we're going to be better off. So what is y'all's thoughts so far on this bill?
I think that you're exactly right. It's not comparable to cannabis
No.
as far as a substance, and
Yeah.
especially as far as a medicine, and it's something that needs to be rolled out really slowly. And I think that people need to understand that it's not something that's got eventually, we're not trying to get everybody to have it accessible the way cannabis is. because it's something that needs to be done in a safe, controlled environment.
Yeah.
You need to be monitored.
Yep.
It's going to be, it's going to be a medical treatment, and people
Yeah.
need to understand that, like, that's more what the idea is and what the bill is. Like, we're not trying to just like have mushrooms on every corner and have everybody just like
Yeah.
tripping all over the streets everywhere.
Yeah.
This is something you'll do in a safe place, for medicinal reasons, and it is very healing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Same. I look at it all across the board as intensive therapy. There are so many things that psilocybin can really touch on and help. Even non-reactive mushrooms have so many health benefits. And
Yeah.
I did art therapy for a while, and even working with the nurses in that facility, they told me the experiments and the small tests that they have run statistically, it shows the differences and how it fires different neurons in your brain and your body. And it really is an intensive therapy that can really change your life and show you a lot of different things about yourself as well as the environment around you. But if you're not careful, then yes, you can have a bad time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I heard somebody say, you never have a bad trip. You had the trip you were supposed to have. And even if that is the trip you were supposed to have, we want you to be in a safe environment where
Exactly.
someone who is a professional knows what to do in that case.
yes.
Because we don't want somebody who to freak out to do whatever. That's the least of what we want to do. And that sets us back when we do stuff like that. So if we were careful about it, it speeds our process up.
Exactly.
We could have had cannabis legalization probably a little bit sooner if we were a little bit more slower on this rollout, and everything. But there wasn't as much research on cannabis then as it is now. So there's a lot of things that went into that. But we're trying to avoid that, and this is one of the ways to do it. You won't be able to like possess it at home or grow it at home right now. It'll be at the facilities. Now, if you have like possession, you won't be prosecuted. So it's not going to be one of those things where you go to the dispensary and buy the mushroom is what I mean. So you're going to get it from essentially your doctor or wherever your setting is. It'll be a whatever trip setting as kind of what we're calling, people are commonly calling it like a trip setting. Either you want a doctor's office, outdoor, whatever, we'll figure that out when times come, because this bill is actually very simple. They're going to allow the DOH to create a lot of rules versus creating a lot of law. What that does is it gives us more opportunities to have more of a voice and to actually have more changes, because instead of once having a 60-day session every other year and a 30-day session in between that, you have twice a year to kind of change things, to add things, to do that. So you get more opportunities, and they do listen a little bit more because you're talking to a panel of professionals that are going to be on this panel that you talk to versus the legislators who have no clue about psilocybin, and they will tell you that I have no clue about this. You have to educate me. You're talking to a bunch of professionals who've done this before. And one thing that someone brought up, and he's a veteran, and I think that needs to be on there too, is that there needs to be veteran representation too, as well as indigenous representation. So, and I think a lot of the representation is there, but I think a couple things need to be added. And I think the DOH will be good about that, because we need to understand that aside from medicinal, some people do use this for religious purposes too. And I think in the future we'll have to look at that as well. For the people that do use this for religious purposes, or what certain tribal nations here in the state use it for, whatever ceremony, they should be able to do that. But I think that would be a bill for another time, because this is a strictly medicinal psilocybin act. It passed its first committee unanimously, which means no one voted against it. It voted 10-0, meaning everybody voted yes, not just yes, but hell yes. It didn't even last that long. There was no debates against this. It was welcomed with open arms by both parties on both sides, which is these days almost damn near never. So
It's true.
To see something like this just so in agreement just warms my heart. Because we're seeing the fact that we were lied to from the opioid companies.
Progression.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Even one of the most conservative people in our legislature was like, I was lied to by the opioid companies, by the big pharma. He said, they lied to me and told me this is safe. He said, it's not safe. He said, but this is safer. He said, and I think the way that we're doing this is going to be a great way. So I hope this passes. I hope this gets to the governor's desk. I'm sure there's going to be some tweaks and some amendments along the way. But I think the way that we're doing this is smart. What do y'all think?
I think it definitely should go through, as long as it is properly monitored. I think it would be a great benefit, especially for people who need it medicinally, or like we were saying, therapeutically, religiously, in those safe environments, as long as it's just properly monitored.
Yeah, and it will be.
I think that it's great, like Tina said, the way it's been rolled out slowly, it's been
Yeah.
looked at meticulously, and I think that things are going to go great with it.
Yeah, and of course, eventually, they'll let home grow and all that, but education and everything has to be there first. And
Baby steps.
Yes.
yeah,
Foundation.
we're taking the foundation, especially for something like this. Yeah, this isn't cannabis again, guys. Just one more time, this is not cannabis. So anyway, that's all I have for this week's legislative update. There will be more going on in between this, I'm sure. So make sure you pay attention to my socials. There's also a couple other people that I have that I share their stuff too. So there's more people joining in on this advocacy stuff and sharing. Thank you, because I can't be everywhere. So I appreciate y'all when you're giving me updates too. So we're going to move on. We're going to go to the last conversation, and this is going to be a federal legalization update. I haven't talked about this in a while because we had an administrative change, and when that happens, you have a lot of confirmations that need to happen. People drop out, this and that, and so now we're kind of getting an idea of where we're at, and it doesn't look good. So the new administration took over. It's been a couple of weeks, but Trump's DEA pick is very, very anti-cannabis. He's actually on the same level as Nancy Reagan. And it's the Reagan era.
Surprise.
Yeah, and he believes that it causes addiction, it causes schizophrenia. We'll talk about that in a second because there's been some studies and stuff that's come out with that. We'll talk here in a little bit. But he has a very anti-cannabis, reefer madness mindset, and this is in charge of the DEA. As you guys know, we've been going through this whole rescheduling process, and the DEA is pretty much the final say in this whole matter. And if the DEA doesn't agree, then we're back to ground zero. We're not getting anywhere. And to be honest, the way that it looks like right now with this guy, I don't think that we're going to be continuing the Schedule 3 anytime soon. So as long as this guy's there and he gets confirmed and all that stuff. But this guy's going to be there for a long time, and so we'll see what happens, because this isn't good. And I know some of you have been like, well, RFK is going to save us. Well, RFK has now punted to the DEA and said he's going to leave it up to the DEA, which is originally what the Department of, or HHS, Human Health and Services, said before. What they were going to do is, this is our recommendation, but we're leaving it up to the DEA because you have the final say and all that, et cetera. So we're stuck right back at where we kind of started. So let's talk about the schizophrenia thing that, the DEA new director is talking about. So there's been some studies that came out kind of recently, and they were comparing it to people with schizophrenia and cannabis use. Now, the study, what it didn't say, and I'll tell you this from the beginning, is it doesn't say that cannabis causes schizophrenia or any of this. They're just seeing a correlation between people that either have a history of schizophrenia or they didn't, or it's hereditary or set or whatever. And for some reason, what it seems is that either cannabis doesn't help their schizophrenia, or it helps, or it brings it up more, but it doesn't cause schizophrenia. If that was the case, we would see cases of schizophrenia kind of go up a little bit more, but that's not what the study was saying. What they're saying is that we're seeing correlations with people with schizophrenia. And like I said before, remember, cannabis isn't for everybody. And they've already said before, if you are a person who your brain isn't mature, which is usually around 25, you shouldn't use cannabis. Adolescents should not be using cannabis whatsoever. And I agree with that. They shouldn't be smoking tobacco. They shouldn't be drinking.
Yep.
Of course, I did all of these things when I was younger, and it was terrible for me. And I pay the price now. So we shouldn't be promoting children using cannabis unless it's necessary to start with. There are some children in our medical cannabis program, but those are kids who absolutely need it. And kids who shouldn't be on these hard opioids and crazy pharmaceuticals. Yes. They need something. Kid Tylenol PM, kid Tylenol exists for a reason, because they can't take adult Tylenol. Mm-hmm. So when a kid is in the medical cannabis program, it's for a reason. The kid isn't sitting there smoking, getting high, this and that. They can even administer it in schools these days, and it's all either topical or oral, stuff like that. The kid isn't smoking a joint in the nurse's office. Exactly. Some people probably thought. These kids are sick, and they legitimately need this. So with that being said, the schizophrenia thing, to me, kind of seems like the reefer madness thing kind of trying to take over. Because if you look at it, you have the tobacco companies losing out, you have the pharmaceutical companies losing out, and you have the alcohol companies, but some of them are getting smart and moving over to cannabis, to be honest. So some of them, they're not all at fault. But you have these three huge corporations or industries in America that are seeing how much money cannabis is making. So now we're starting to see studies like this, but it's being taken the wrong way, that people are seeing it as, well, cannabis is causing schizophrenia. No, the study says that there is a link between people with schizophrenia or history of, or a family history of, and cannabis use, and it coming out as that. So that's kind of like where they're getting at. And we're seeing similar stuff. You know, I've had people even canceled on the show for me because of studies like this, like, you know, the evidence mounting against cannabis and stuff like that. But these studies aren't really telling us anything we don't already know or have not known about cannabis already. It's kind of either confirming it, or these studies need to be peer reviewed, or there's something up with these studies. Again, as I said, with studies, y'all need to read them, where they came from, who funded it. Even if you agree with it, you need to scrutinize all studies, because it's going to get scrutinized. And I don't really say that studies are the law of the land a lot of the times, because they change. You know, like new information comes out, something gets added. So this right here is going to get expanded, is what I'm saying. So they're going to expand on this, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to find out if you have a history of schizophrenia, you should probably not use cannabis. Or if your family has a history of schizophrenia, you should probably not use cannabis. And that's probably what they're going to come at. Because now they're saying that if you have heart issues, you probably shouldn't use cannabis. It does raise your blood levels, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have a heart issue, some doctors are saying, you know, you should probably shouldn't use cannabis because it could cause your heart to do whatever. So consult your doctor is always the number one thing to do. So what is your thoughts so far on this? I know it's been a lot of information, but you know, what is your thoughts so far, you know, on this whole update of what we're getting on the federal side? Because a lot's changed.
Well, I understand federally that they want to look at all these things, but I agree that it's all relative.
Yeah.
Because when you look at it, when there's a spike in these studies, they're going to focus on those negative bearings and hone in on something to cure or ail that negative.
Yeah.
As to where you have more of those spikes, you're going to see that with any type of underlying condition. If they drink alcohol, anything that inhibits that behavior, of course, you're going to have that relative chance of it coming out.
Yeah.
And there's also people that I personally have someone in my family. She developed schizophrenia as time went along using hard opioids and pharmaceuticals, and it's actually the exact opposite, because she will drink alcohol and she will hear more voices, and then when she smokes, she'll sit there and look at everybody and goes, my brain is quiet. And so, you know, every situation is relative, and I think it really just depends on your body, your physiology, and how these things hit you.
Yeah. Because there was another one, you know, talking about cannabis use disorder. Now, this is different from the one where your stomach hurts when you use cannabis. This is essentially you're addicted to cannabis. And so one of the studies was, you know, people with CUD or cannabis use disorder, they were seeing something with schizophrenia. But what I'm thinking is these people had a history of, because it was a smaller percent. It wasn't like a 20%, a 50%, or anything like it was a percent that was, you know, alarming, like a 10%, but still at the same time, it's like, well, that's still relatively low compared to, you know, the whole population set. So to me, it's like, okay, so maybe this population of people that have this shouldn't be using this cannabis. And when you look at cannabis use disorder, I actually ran into a friend recently, and he stopped using cannabis because he started getting the stomach pains and stuff like that, you know, some people are getting. Now, what he didn't tell me, and I found out later, is that he smoked 2 grams a day of you know, hash.
See?
And so he would smoke 2 grams a day, and I'm like, that's a lot. You know, like 2 grams a day, that's a lot, homie. And then now he's picked up drinking. And so now his vice is the drinking thing. And so we asked him, like, well, do you think you're alcoholic? He's like, probably, man. So my thing is, what I'm trying to get at is cannabis use disorder isn't just cannabis. Sometimes people just have an addictive personality, and they're going to be addicted to substances regardless of what it is. So that's one thing we have to look at. And once I heard that, I said, no, that makes sense why you're considered a cannabis use disorder. You were smoking 2 grams a day. You know, maybe there's something underlying that needs to be addressed, versus just blaming cannabis. Now, don't get me wrong, he probably can never, you know, use cannabis the capacity that he did, you know, in the past because of his issues now. But I don't think anybody should be smoking 2 grams of anything a day. You know, like
exactly.
that. Yeah, I mean, regular flower, you know, a little different. But, you know, if you have like raw resin, any kind of hash, and you're smoking 2 grams of it a day, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, that's a legitimate problem. And, you know, there is a chance that people can get addicted to cannabis. It's very low, but the chances are there. And I'm getting back to what I said again. These are things that we knew already. You know, these aren't things that are surprises to us. We already know cannabis is very low on the addiction level, but it still can happen. And we already know that the chances of you dying from cannabis are pretty much zero. But there's still medical issues that you can have that can probably cause to that. Like currently, we have people that work in the industry that have died from working in manufacturing facilities, rolling joints, and not having respirators. They have all the powdered stuff in the air floating around. It gets in their lungs. They get a lung infection. They die. Or it has mold in it and it gets in their lungs and they die. So that is one way that you can die from cannabis, but it's not from the use. It's just from your employer not really caring about you and getting you the proper PPE. Because if you're working in that environment, you do need a respirator. And for those of you that work in a manufacturing facility, start talking to your boss and maybe start telling him, can we get something to help our bodies for the long term? Because yeah, you're young now, but you do get older. And I want you guys to get very old. I don't want you to die young.
Just like any other business, agronomics are important.
Yes.
That was something that I got to touch on a little bit when I was in safety schools, because like right as the medical cannabis stuff was rolling out, and like OSHA like didn't know how to even go about regulating stuff, like even like processing like concentrates and stuff like that. You're dealing with gases, you're dealing with all these things. There was an incident with an explosion, I think, in Santa Fe at the time, and
We've had two.
there's been a lot of things like that. So like that's just a whole nother entity that's having to come in and take care of that stuff. But there's so many new things. It's just like you said, they're not wearing respirators, stuff like that. When you work in construction, you're working around like concrete, for example, they already know that you shouldn't be breathing in the silica dust, and they provide you the PPE. But this industry is so new. So like if you're working in this industry, it's important, to look out for yourself. And if something is making you feel weird, like maybe nobody else noticed it yet, but like maybe there needs to be something put in place. Maybe, there needs to be some PPE, there needs to be another procedure put in place to keep you safe. But everything's new, and everybody needs to be open and aware, and give your input if you think something, definitely.
100%. Because I ran into people even in New Mexico that have said the same thing. Like I kept getting upper respiratory infections because of my job. And, it gets to the point where, like, well, either your employer is not going to do anything, you're going to do something, meaning you're going to quit, or you're going to buy the equipment yourself and use it at work until they change it and buy it for you, because once one person does it and they say, like, why are you doing this? Well, look at everything we're working around. I'm just worried about my lungs. Someone else might see that and be like, that's a good idea. I need to do that too. And you might end up with that. And then the company might take it as, okay, we're going to put this as something that needs to be implemented.
Also use your voice to implement that, push that,
we don't want this to be something that we find out long term, like with asbestos and silica dust, and like find out later when people are dying later in their life that, like now the new people need to wear PPE, if you're breathing in stuff in the air, protect your lungs.
Any kind of particle is bad for your lungs, like even dust, whatever, it's bad for you. Like I know it's weed, but in that sense, it's not good for you because you're not taking it the right way. So yeah, just be careful out there, y'all. When it comes to that, and we'll see what happens. As for right now with for the federal update, not much is going on. We even have a couple of GOP senators who are pushing to make it to where cannabis will never be able to get away from 280E, even if they reschedule it. So there's that. But you have on the other side too, there's some GOP senators who really want to make sure that the Safe Banking Act gets passed too. So it's not all bad, but at the same time, bills like this are alarming. So I'll keep you guys, updated. There's really not too much going on in that sense, just more reefer madness, essentially, coming from our federal government side, which is unfortunate. I was afraid of this happening, but time will tell. Maybe something will change. We don't know. But as of right now, it looks like the rescheduling is probably dead for now, and any kind of legalization effort might be dead too. We do have a little bit of hopes on the safe banking, but I don't know. It hasn't passed in the recent years, and they could be met with something else. So we'll see. Do you ladies have anything else before?
No, thank you so much for having us on. This was awesome. We got to talk about a lot of good topics and learn some new information. So it was really awesome.
Awesome, and thank you, ladies, for being on. It was a great conversation.
Great host. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And that's all I have for this week, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, whatever you got to do to stay in the know. I'll be back next week with another legislative update. All right.